Good morning, good morning, good morning. Since I put my head down in the computer, a few more people have arrived here. It's our pleasure and honor. People didn't actually believe when I told them that Rebbetzen Rigler is here in town, that she was here. And they obviously don't read the poster, because when I said to somebody, why are you sending the address? I said, because we're blessed. And for simchas, and when there's a simcha and Rebbetzen Rigler and her husband have traveled in, then we take every opportunity to utilize and to gain from all of our inspiration. So thank you for being with us. Good morning to everybody, wherever you are. My mother did tell me this morning she was logging in. Morning, Suzanne, I can see you waving. And Mom, welcome, as always. And we're looking forward to all of us being together in Yerushalayim very soon. I'm waiting today for them to tell me how we get there. And in Yirtzeh Hashem, we will be sending out the message. Oh, you can't see you now.
I can't.
So let's have a look how we.
No, but I need it to be a little. I need it to be a little.
You need
okay to be a little above, so I can.
Okay. I guess we've got notes here. There, so every now and again you might just.
Yeah, why don't you move your chairs?
Leave your chairs closer to the side. Can you do that?
You can't see me. What? No, thank you. Maybe later.
I'm just going to make a warning. I only have 3 books left, so they will just auction them. They will just. Okay, let's go. We'll get more. Okay, let's go.
Okay, everybody.
Okay. Anybody wants to move to the side of
No, Joanne, you sit here. What you sit? You mean somebody can sit here. Yeah, everybody move up. Good. Sorry. Okay, great. Okay, everybody can see everybody. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank Allison for hosting us, and I want to thank Joanne for always, like, I said, I'm coming to. This was like 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago. I'm coming to London for speaking for Simcha. My cousin's granddaughter's getting married, and immediately, she invited me, and I always feel like Joanne is really like we really work in sync. She's my soul sister. So first of all, how many of you have read this book? I've been here before. Okay. How many of you heard me speak before Tisha B'Av about the book? Raise your hand. Okay. So that talk I gave before Tisha B'Av, and I don't want to repeat it because nothing's more boring than having to hear the same thing you already heard, is trying to convince people of the reality of the book. The book is about reincarnated souls from the Holocaust. I spend this first half of chapter 2 proving that reincarnation, which we call Gilgulei Neshamot, is a Jewish concept. We didn't get it from the New Age. It's been in Judaism for since the beginning, as everything comes from Sinai. So based on my own experiences of feeling like I was a soul from the Holocaust, had been the Holocaust, even though I was born in 1948 in New Jersey in America, near Philadelphia, to second generation American parents with no connection to the Holocaust, no direct connection to the Holocaust. I had reason to suspect that I had been there, and you can read all about it in the book. I'm not going to repeat any of that. But then discovered decades later, when I was already living in Jerusalem, that a good friend of mine also had reason to believe that she was a soul from the Holocaust. And then when I started to finally come out of the closet and mention it to other good friends of mine living in Jerusalem, American, all the people I'm talking about are people who were born after the Holocaust. We're not talking at all about survivors. Literally every one of my friends turned out to be, that they had these feelings. I call the first chapter The Secret Society because people don't talk about it. And people are ashamed to admit that they, have had any experiences, dreams, recurring dreams, flashbacks, strange phobias, anything that makes them feel, which is a generalized feeling that I was there. I can't go into a Holocaust museum. I went once to a Holocaust museum and I fainted, like that type of unusual response to the Holocaust. So I guarantee each of you that you know somebody well, a relative or a good friend who is a Gilgal from the Holocaust. And the reason you don't know that is because people don't talk about it. There was a woman, since the book came out, I got an email from a doctor who lives in Israel, Ramat Beit Shemesh. She was reading the book. There's a story in the book. It's a chapter on dreams. It's not like this fantastic, powerful story. A woman had named Dr. I think Adina Levy is her name. She had a dream of the Nazis banging down the door. Something. The reason I used it is because this person is a scientist, a neuroscientist, who is a professor at a university in New York and has published papers in peer-reviewed journals. Can you see me?
Yeah.
So she's published papers in peer-reviewed journals. So to me, it was very important to have in the book somebody with those kind of credentials, so they wouldn't think that just everybody that I quote is some kind of wacko or counterculture spaced out person. So I quoted her, and I had permission to use her name. So this doctor from Beit Shemesh wrote to me. She read the book, and she was stunned to read this account about this Dr. Adina Levy, because Adina Levy is one of her oldest and dearest friends, and she never knew that Dr. Adina Levy had dreams of the Holocaust, like she herself, the doctor writing to me, has had through her life. So like, how could this be? This is her good and old friend. They've been friends for decades. How could it be that this was happening to her and this was happening to her, and they never checked in with each other? They never found out. And so she called her on the phone, her good friend, and they talked about their dreams. And it turned out they were having the same dream. The details of the dream matched up. So then she also wrote that she and her husband, although they live in Israel now, they made Aliyah from Atlanta, Georgia. And when they lived in Atlanta, they built their own house from scratch. And she told the architect she wanted a secret hiding place under the stairs. He should put into the plans a secret hiding place under the stairs. Nobody would know about it except she and her husband. Well, she found out in this conversation with her friend that her friend, when she was renovating her house, I forget where, asked the architect to put in a secret hiding place under the stairs. Nobody knew about it. Like, these two good friends for decades, like, were living parallel lives, had the same dream, and like they didn't know about it because neither one felt comfortable to reveal it to the other, because nobody wants to be deemed weird. So so the book, the first 2/3 of the book is trying to convince the reader that this is a real phenomenon, that people who are having these recurring dreams or flashbacks or panic attacks or phobias, it really is based on it. Yes?
Sorry, just a quick question.
Yes.
Did either of them have parents or grandparents in the Holocaust? Just out of curiosity.
I don't remember. I have an online form, an online survey, which 450 people, now many more than 450 people filled out. And that's a question that is asked. That's question number 3. But I don't remember right now about them. My theory is that they were sisters or siblings in the Holocaust, and in that past incarnation. Did they come back to, did they come back to the same? No, they didn't come back to the same family, although it's a complicated situation. Always a complicated situation. Okay. So I'm not going to review any of that. I'm going to trust that everybody who's listening to this and all of you who are present here, like, I don't have to convince you that this is real and it's not all just made up Bubba-Meisel's. I want to start out by doing a thought experiment. Let's say you're writing a movie script and the protagonist, we're going to call her Gloria. Rebbetzen always uses Gloria. Gloria, she's a wealthy, miserly, selfish woman. And her cousin comes to her for help. Now, this cousin is also born in this upper middle class family, but she married somebody the family didn't approve of, a good person, but the family didn't approve of him for whatever reason, maybe his social status, whatever. And she married him anyway, and the cousin, they had 2 children, and then the husband became sick with some kind of rare form of cancer, and the medical bills started to accumulate, and the debts started to accumulate, and then the husband died. And at this point was where the movie is starting. The cousin, who is now a widow with a huge, the bank has foreclosed on her house. She doesn't have a house. She has 2 children. Her husband is dead. Tremendous amount of debts. She comes to her wealthy cousin Gloria, the first cousin, to ask her for help. And Gloria tells her it's her own fault for marrying him. She shouldn't have married him. We never approved of him. And she basically throws her out without helping her. Your own fault. Okay. Now, this movie that you have been charged to write is supposed to be a movie of personal transformation, where by the end of the movie, the protagonist, Gloria, has changed. By the end of the movie, instead of being miserly and selfish, she becomes kind and compassionate, empathetic, generous. How's this going to happen? You've got a whole hour-and-a-half movie to make this personal transformation happen. That's what would be the substance of the movie. There are movies like this. There's some movie with Tom Hanks years ago, I don't remember what it was called, about this businessman who ended up like very selfish, who ended up going through a personal transformation. But you're the scriptwriter now, so I'd like to hear some ideas.
She got ill.
She what?
She got ill. Well, she got something.
Oh, she got ill. She herself got ill.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. And then the hospital bills.
Yeah.
But she was wealthy. She could pay those hospital bills.
Yeah, but she realized what her brother,
She had
her cousin went
It
through.
was like a,
Say it loud so the people who are listening on Zoom can.
she had like an epiphany, like when something bad happens to you and you see the light, and maybe she tuned it into that, and it helps. It just kind of, how sometimes you.
Okay, I don't know if everyone, how do I find out if people who are
Yeah, that's
listening?
what I'm going to. I'm just asking.
Can you hear the
They can
questions, or
raise
should
their
I
hands.
repeat them?
Okay.
Raise your hand if you heard the question. I hear the question. Raise your hand if you heard the question.
They can add into our chat.
If
Okay.
something bad happens to you, you sometimes think, well, let me do something good and I'll erase my bad.
Okay, so there have been 3 answers so far. Basically, one said that she herself would get sick. One said something bad would happen to her and she would have an epiphany that she just suddenly realized. And the third answer was, when something bad happens to you, sometimes that makes you like review your life and see, like, why did this happen to me?
And
Yes.
loss of her fortune.
A loss of her fortune, a fourth answer, that she would lose her fortune. She herself would become poor. She herself would become financially destitute. Okay, anybody else want to guess?
Less dramatic, but she remembered their shared past, their maybe grandparents and their lives together, how they're actually cousins and family, and maybe that kind of loneliness, she starts becoming connected.
So the next answer is that she remembered like their common ancestor, their grandparents, and made her feel like akin to this impoverished cousin. Anybody
She
get?
saw the impoverished cousin completely like not care about not having money and leading this amazing life, impoverished, but being inspired by Hashem, and saw that as like, wow, okay, if she can do that, and she, on her own, and
Okay,
she's
she's
inspiring to her. She inspired
she
her.
saw the cousin, although she's impoverished and in debt and has no money, that somehow she's very triumphant spiritually and inwardly and is leading a happy life, whereas Gloria herself is like lonely and miserable as rich miserly people tend to be. So okay. So somebody, I don't know, somebody's saying community pressure. She has a near-death experience and becomes Baal Tshuva, somebody said. Oh, there's a lot of answers. She reads your book and it resonates deeply. Okay, so most of the answers seem to revolve around that something bad happens to her. She gets sick, she loses her fortune, that puts her in a state of empathy, because now she knows how it feels to have big medical bills or to not have money. And now she can go, and now she goes to the place of empathy because she's there. So she knows how it feels. I want you to now, continuing this thought experiment, expand the time frame. Let's say Gloria dies and she's wealthy and miserable and still mean to the day she dies. And she gets to, we call the next world, the sages call the next world the Olam HaEmes, the world of truth. They call it the world of truth because there we all our souls in the next world see clearly. In this world, everything is obscured by our own agendas and our prejudices and our fears and desires. But in the next world, you really see things clearly. So she gets to the world of truth and she comes to the heavenly judgment, where she sees that we're in the heavenly judgment. What we see is the harm that our bad choices cause. When we do something bad, when we make a bad choice, it has repercussions. And then we see this in the world of truth, whether we meant it or not. We yelled at our kids. We had a good reason for yelling at our kids because they did something very wrong. But what that does to our child's psyche, it does to their self-image. When we see all the repercussions over the years of every choice we make. So let's say Gloria sees all the harm that her choices cause, and she's flabbergasted to realize all the terrible consequences, and she regrets her choices, and she wished she had acted differently. She wished she had been more kind, more compassionate, more generous. And the next thing that happens, she's in the world of souls now. Hashem, in his mercy, gives her another chance. He gives her a chance to rectify her mistakes. And she can come down into this world again in order to rectify her bad choices. So this is in fact what the Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who was great sage of the 18th century. He lived in the 1700s in Italy and then in Eretz Israel. He's buried in near Tveria. He wrote in his classic Derech Hashem, The Way of God. Anybody here has studied Derech Hashem? It's a very, very important and great book. And universally accepted. Nobody will say, oh, it's fringe. It's not. It's universally accepted in the Torah world. He wrote, God arranged matters so that man's chances of achieving ultimate salvation should be maximized. A single soul can be reincarnated a number of times in different bodies, and in this manner, it can rectify the damage done in previous incarnations. The key word here is rectify. Similarly, it can also achieve perfection that was not attained in previous incarnations. There are some people who are reading this book who are very upset. Like most people love it, but many people are very upset about the idea that, so people who died, Al Kiddush Hashem, in the Holocaust because they were Jews, should be reincarnated again, and very often in non-Jewish bodies, because it's much easier to get a Jewish body than it is to get a non-Jewish mother than a Jewish mother, because there might be fewer Jewish mothers in the world than there are non-Jewish mothers. And why should they have to come back? So the answer is that the Ramchal says here, similarly, it can achieve perfection that was not attained in its previous incarnations. Even someone who died Al Kiddush Hashem because they were a Jew, they still can be. There's no ceiling in the next world. You can always go higher. And so there's two engines here. One is tikkun, rectification, and the other is just a chance to go higher. You're on a high level, you can go even higher. We'll give another chance to go even higher. But when a soul comes back down, and in Judaism it's complicated, it's not a single soul entity. In the Hindu concept, there's a single soul entity coming into this body, and then coming back to this body, and then coming back to this body. But in Judaism, it's much more complicated. The parts of the soul that are rectified do not come down again. Only the parts of the soul that need tikkun come down again. So, and there are sparks of souls, and there's different. It's very, very
I
complicated.
thought you said all bits could go higher.
It's true, but so let's say a person, they don't have big flaws to fix. They didn't tell lies. They weren't given to anger. But let's say that, that sometimes they didn't, do as much chesed and kindness as they could do. They don't have negative things to fix, but they could have done more chesed. They get a chance to come back and do more chesed.
And then the other way around, why are the bits perfect and stay up there if they could always go higher?
Because there's parts of the soul, the parts that are rectified don't need to come down, they stay up. Only the parts that need more or fixing come back. So let's get back to Gloria. And of course, she's not going to be called Gloria when she comes down again. She's not going to have the same face or the same name or the same figure. It's interesting to me that I have a friend who's actually a relative who came in for the wedding. We were talking last night. She was talking about her daughter. She was talking about her daughter that, this soul came down to you. She told her young daughter. And I'm thinking, wait a second, who's you? Who's you? You are the soul. The name, the face, the features, the figure, the height. Well, this is your body. But who are you? You're your soul. I mean, in Judaism, we're both. We're a soul body combo. But your essential nature is always your soul.
I get the fact with Holocaust survivors coming back because they haven't done anything wrong, so they're given an opportunity to come back. But you describe Gloria as not being this nice person at all. Why is Hashem giving her a chance?
Because Hashem has wonderful mercy.
I get that, but then my Sahara could say, oh, I can do whatever I want then in this world. And then I go to Hashem and Hashem will give me another chance.
Well,
where's the defining line between who he gives
so
a chance?
the question is, what happens in the next world? When Gloria gets to the next world and she sees the damage that her bad choices produced, then what is hell? I mean, Christians have, I don't know if you ever read Dante's Inferno, the devils and the fire, and this, the hell is the fire of regret. And you get to the next world and you realize all the damage you did, and you realize that you couldn't have, and they realize you didn't fulfill your potential. You had potential, you could have done so much good, you didn't do it, and you did bad, And the fire of regret, there are no physical fires. There's no physicality in the next world. There are no physical fires. There are no demons with pitchforks. But when a soul sees what they did, the harm they caused, the fire of regret is worse than any physical fire.
I understand that, but when say you have your cycle throughout the year,
Yeah.
but basically it's a bit like I was always told it's a bit like, it's stupid, but boots bonus points. Anyone here will get that. It's like when someone's died, they can't elevate themselves.
That's
to
right.
higher,
Yeah, that's
and it's
right.
only us in this
That's
world
right.
by giving money and doing
Yes,
things
yes,
in their
yes,
honor.
yes.
So then I'm confused if they can't move anywhere, they're just stuck. I was just thought that it's only like us doing good deeds in their name, but now I'm confused because I'm thinking, right, but they're going to be given an opportunity to come back. And
Because only in this world, you're giving tzedakah in this world can move your deceased parents' soul up.
Mhm.
A soul in the next world might regret the bad things they did. They can't fix it. They've got to come down to this world. This is the only world of fixing. So why should they even get a chance to come back? People who, because Hashem in His mercy gives us a chance to come back with the greater realization and awareness of what I need to
so
fix.
everybody's given the opportunity to come back.
No, I think there are
Sorry.
in general, yes, in general. I think there's an idea that if you use, this is a very, very abstract idea, Kabbalistic idea, that you use your hand to give tzedakah, then in the next world you'll have a hand, whatever that means. Again, there's no physicality in the next world. And then you have time to come back. But if there's a person who didn't do anything good, then there's nothing to come back. There's no, the soul is just like that.
Can I ask, so if
Yes.
I'm giving tzedakah to elevate my mother's soul,
Yes.
but she's already come back and she's here now, then how does that?
So that's where in Judaism it gets so complicated. It gets so complicated because there are parts of souls and there are sparks of souls, and sparks of souls can come into more than one person, you know, and I'm not a great Kabbalist and I don't know the detailed answer to that, and I'm not sure we need to know all the detailed answer. You know that if you give tzedakah for your mother's soul, it benefits your mother. Okay. Could your mother already be back? Yes, she could be back, in some form. Very likely as your daughter, your granddaughter, but it still works.
If it's encouraging you to do that, unfortunately you've lost a parent up and you're giving, apart from elevating their soul, is it not actually encouraging your own goodness?
Yes, but it also has the effect on the other soul.
But I mean,
Yes,
it's
yes,
sometimes
both, yes. Yes, it
retrospectively,
does, yes.
yeah.
Amen.
Ask a quick question. We always hear this phrase, in the Holocaust, they died after Hashem. So my interpretation of that, maybe completely simplistically and incorrectly, has been it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, what person you were. If you died in the Holocaust, you were elevated, and that was it. So why did those Lashanas need to come back to rectify them?
So the sentence before the last sentence that you said is the key sentence of what you just said. No matter who they were, yes, they had an elevation, but people who are anger prone were still, that doesn't get fixed automatically by dying in the Holocaust because you were a Jew. People who were dishonest, who cheated in business, doesn't get fixed by dying as a Jew. This is the big mistake that people make, that everything gets fixed. No, Ephraim Swirsky, who I quote many times in the book, he does past life regressions, and he doesn't have smicha. He's not a rabbi, but he was told by Rav Noach Weinberg, the founder of Eshet Torah. People call me rabbi, and he said, "So okay, let them call you rabbi. You're very educated. You are a teacher." So he says that people ask, why did the Holocaust happen? The question is invalid. You have to say that there are 6 million reasons the Holocaust happened. For each person had an individual journey. And if you talk to survivors, you realize, like the 6 million, no, every person had an individual. Every person, Rebbetzen High, Sara Kramer, about whom I wrote Holy Woman. How many of you read Holy Woman? So she said every single Jew who was saved by a miracle. She was saved by 3 miracles. So there's an individual soul story for every single soul who survived and every single soul who didn't survive. And everybody has their own soul journey, which is the subject of our talk today, which I'm going to continue on now because otherwise I'll never finish. So Gloria's coming back, but the circumstances of her life have to be different, obviously. And this time she's going to be faced with conditions that will conduce to the development of empathy and compassion, because that's what she needs, didn't she? What she needs to fix. That's what she didn't have, and that's what her specific tikkun has to be: empathy and compassion. So, as one of you said, she could lose all her money, so she'll know how it feels to be poor. That will give her a sense of, it could give her now. So here's where everything that is true is complicated. Anything that is simple, except for the fact that there's one God, is like, doesn't catch the whole truth. So the truth is that every human being has free choice. So she could come back poor, and that could conduce to her feeling empathy for people who are poor, or she could choose to be bitter and angry about being poor. And she could really be as obnoxious as she was the last time around, because she chooses, instead of learning the lesson of this is how it feels to be poor through no fault of your own, she could choose to be bitter and angry. So when I say the soul chooses, or is chosen for the soul, the situation that will conduce to that person's tikkun, again, a person has free choice. They can blow it. We always have an opportunity to blow it, or we have an opportunity not to blow it. So the sages of the Talmud wrote that there are 8 things that are determined before a soul is born. Now, some of these things are obvious. Parents, well, obviously your parents are chosen before you're born because you're born to those parents. Body type, whether you'll be heavy and stocky and have to spend your whole life trying to lose weight, or whether you'll be one of these people who can eat whatever they want and never gain an ounce. That's determined before a person is born. Their body type, intelligence, clearly determined before a person is born. Their IQ, whether it can be developed or not developed. Talents and predispositions, clearly. Some people are musical, some people are artistic, some people are intellectual, some people are athletic. Born talents and predispositions, okay, clearly born before you're born. And there are other things that are not so clear, but the Talmud says that it's decided before you're born. One is health, whether you'll have good health or bad health. One is spouse, who you will marry. The voice goes out 40 days before you're conceived, saying the son of so-and-so will marry the daughter of so-and-so. One is children, whether or not you'll have children. And of course, these things can be changed through a lot of prayer and tzedakah and tshuva. Anything can be changed. So those things are determined. The last one that I didn't mention, parnasa. Whether a person will be rich or poor is determined before you're born. Now you can say, well, no, if you work hard, smart, go to business school, learn what to invest in, you can go from becoming poor to becoming rich. But we will say that the person who becomes rich in that way was destined to become rich. Ibn Ezra, one of the great commentators, called Rishonim, he lived in the 11th century. He said that he was destined to be poor. If he made umbrellas, it would never rain. And if he made shrouds, no one would ever die. There's some people, we say they're mazel, they have bad mazel, they have no mazel. So this is another concept which I don't want to get into in detail. About the mothers, there's 8 things that are fated. But again, you always have free choice. So, so we all agree that for Gloria, for her to become a person of compassion and empathy, something has to happen to her. And if it didn't happen in one lifetime, it's going to happen in this lifetime. And one thing that could happen is that she could be born sickly, so she knows how it feels to be sick and have medical bills. Or another thing that could happen is she could be destined to be born poor, so she knows how it feels to be poor through no fault of your own. And then she'll have empathy. But here's the question, and this is really what I want to discuss with you today. She's in the world of souls. She wants a tikkun. She sees clearly what she should have done and didn't do, and she wants a tikkun. And her tikkun lies, let's say, in being born to a poor family, or to a family that becomes poor.
Sorry, is she white? Hold on, when you're sold, so she knows everything, she knows her
Yeah.
mistakes, but when she gets put in another body.
She'll forget. That's right. But we're not there yet. Right now,
Oh, sorry.
okay, you're going too fast. We're still in the world of souls.
Oh.
Gloria's in the world of souls. She sees what she needs. Okay, she knows what she needs. And she knows that being born to a poor family will give her empathy for the poor. The question is, who writes the script? In our thought experiment, you were writing the script. Now she's in the world of souls. Who's writing the script? Is being poor imposed on this soul? Does the soul have any choice? Or does God give her a deal she can't refuse, like a mafia boss? You want this. This is good for you. You're going to be born poor, I mean, like, really, who would choose to be poor? Who would choose to be sickly? Why would anybody choose that? So I want to share with you probably the most incredible Torah teaching I ever learned. It's based on a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, page 11, first side, Amud Aleph. It says, all creatures were created in their stature. The English is really bad. I translated this myself, but I literally translated it. Kol maaseh b'reishit b'kumatan nivru l'datan nivru v'tzivonam nivru. All creatures were created in their stature, were created according to their knowledge and agreement, and were created according to their desire. So the Leshem, now the Leshem was a Mikubala Kabbalist who lived, great Torah sage and Kabbalist, who lived at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century. If you've heard of Rav Yosef Shalom Elyashiv, who was what we call the Gadol Hador, the leading rabbi of the last generation, this was his grandfather. His name was Rav Shlomo Elyashiv. But he's called the Leshem, that was because that's the title of his book. Many great Torah sages are called according to their book. So the Leshem wrote, and like, this goes very deep, but try to listen carefully, because this is absolutely a life-changing teaching. And if it came from anyone lesser than the Leshem, we couldn't rely on it because it's so mind-blowing. But here's what the Leshem wrote. Everyone was created according to his knowledge and his will, because he sees and understands that this is the true goodness for him, to be created at this level precisely according to the goal, on that word goal, of the intention of his existence. What's the goal of his existence? When the soul in the higher world, he sees the goal of his existence, which was, of course, what do we say, tikkun? So it says that has been revealed to him from the mouth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the mouth of God. The soul is told what his tikkun is, what his goal, to each and every one. Behold, it is done to them like this, with the agreement of their knowledge, knowledge, and their desire and their will. because they recognize and see that this is the true good for them. Because they all live and understand and know at the beginning what will be at the end. Everything is revealed. The fact that on a day in early October in London, you would be sitting in Allison's house and listening to me tell you this. Your soul knew this in every detail when it was in the world of souls. You knew everything, you saw the whole movie, and you agreed to it. There's knowledge, these words the lesson keeps repeating, knowledge, will, goal.
Sorry, you said that.
Wait, let me finish the lesson and then I'll take questions. Because they all live and understand and know at the beginning what will be at the end. And to them it has been revealed the ultimate goal of their existence, which is their personal tikkun. Everybody has their own individual tikkun. And all of their goings and their happenings, everything, what happened in your home this morning before you could leave to come here. Everything that will happen to them from their first beginnings until the end of everything. And they chose for themselves. You hearing this? They chose for themselves all this with a willing nefesh, according to the knowledge that was revealed to them like this from the mouth of the Creator. That truly this is good and fitting for them according to their ultimate final tikkun. And they understand and they see that yes, this fits them precisely according to the ultimate intention that is with their final tikkun. So this, like, is everybody's mind blown as much as mine was when I first learned this lesson? Everything is revealed to you when you're in the world of souls. You see everything. You're given a choice. You're told from Hashem himself what your goal is in life. Your goal is your tikkun. And you get to choose all the situations that will be conducive to your tikkun.
This is your soul.
Yes, your soul.
But then when your soul gets put into the next body, how does the body know? How does one tap into the soul like that to know?
You don't. You forget.
Yeah.
You know, the Midrash says that the baby in the womb, the fetus in the womb learns the whole Torah, whatever that means. And then right before birth, the angel, it learns from an angel in the womb. Right before birth, the angel goes like this, and you forget everything. So question is always asked, what's the point of learning something that you're going to forget? Because so when you hear it again, you recognize it as truth. So yes, we don't remember, but when we're in this world again, we recognize, oh yes, this is the tikkun I have to do.
You can never complain because you chose it.
You can never complain because you chose it. That's number one. You can never complain because you chose it. But in the context of your tikkun, so if you understand that you are a soul who has a tikkun to do, and your antenna are up for determining what your tikkun is. I mean, you're young, but I think I knew even when I was young that my tikkun had to do with anger, because I was very anger prone. I was very volatile, I had a short temper. I could say it was genetic. My father, who was a very Hasidic person, he had a very short temper. But as soon as you start learning Torah, you realize what is proper midos, character traits, and you realize which ones you don't have. You know, Gloria will recognize at some point that being miserly and being mean is not a Torah value, and she needs to fix it. If she has been wise enough and blessed enough to have a chance to get to learn Torah, if she has Joanne Dove in her life and seed has somehow found her, she'll know what Torah values are, and she'll find out, oh, so being miserly is not the right way to be. We're supposed to give tzedakah, we're supposed to help our family first. That's the halacha. Halacha is when you're giving tzedakah, you give to needy members of your family before you give to anybody else.
equally, she could not. Equally, she's got the Yates horror,
That's right.
come to that, and she can't remember anything.
But she comes back to that poor family that she chose. So she has a Yetzer Hara, but instead of coming back to the rich family that she had last time, which made her feel like, what?
She's come back to a poor family and she's bitter.
She is not bitter. She could choose bitterness.
Yeah.
Choice is always available to us. Choice is always available. Yes.
You said that you know the end and you know that your life is for the good because Hashem, when you make that choice, says to you,
First of all, it's not me, it's the Leshem. And he's saying, the Leshem is saying, not your life is for the good, your life is for tikkun. Your life is for tikkun, repair, rectification.
What if you fail that repair? So then it's not, your life isn't for the good. So
That's
you
right.
go
He
after-
didn't say it was for the good. He said it was for the goal. The goal is tikkun. Yes, you can blow it. People blow it.
So why would people accept it then and say, hey, actually, I can see that I'm going to blow it down there.
No, you don't see. That's free choice. Free choice is not predetermined. What's predetermined is the setting. Rich or poor, healthy or sickly. This husband, how many of you are married? Okay, so wives complain about their husbands. Why does he act like this? He acts like this because when you were in the world of souls and you saw what your tikkun is, you chose the husband who would facilitate your tikkun. And that means his strengths and it means his weaknesses. So why does he act like this? That drives me crazy. Because of that you have a choice to respond in a way that is patient, loving, unconditional love, and all the good things. Okay, it's exactly what you need, but you have free choice. Yes.
How many gilgul does one soul?
Oh, very good question. So there's something in the book of Job that mentions the number 4. So there will be people say people only get 4 chances, but there's other sources that say if you're making good choices, you can get 1,000 chances. If you're making bad choices, if you're really blowing it time after time, you only get 4 choices. You only get 4 chances.
You come back at the table.
You can come back as an animal. You can get, but not good. Yes.
I might be remembering this incorrectly, but I want to share when they were talking about pilgrimage. And I think he said that Gilda won't come back in a woman's body.
Yes, there's a concept in. I mean, again, in Judaism. The great thing about Judaism is 2 Jews, 3 opinions. So there are Mikubalim who say that women don't need to reincarnate and don't reincarnate. But clearly women do reincarnate because my book is full of this and that. So yes.
If you know what's going to happen and you've been a Jewish soul, if you go then you have a non-Jewish neshama, how do you get the opportunity to do your tikkun, to do mitzvot? You may never have the opportunity to learn about
Wait.
about stuff
If you're a
like
Jewish neshama and you come back into a non-Jewish body,
then you're not Jewish. If you're
then you have to. So my book has an entire chapter called Emergency Landings: Jewish Souls in Christian Bodies. So you have to read that chapter because it tells most of the people who come back, the Jewish souls who come back into non-Jewish bodies for whatever reason, feel a very strong pull to Judaism, even without ever having known a Jew. People have a story in here of somebody who was born in New Zealand, never knew a Jew, but at the age of 5 was saying, I don't eat pork, I don't eat bacon.
So you have some attraction then.
Yes, you have some very
Isn't
strong
that why
attraction.
converts? They're lost souls.
And then they eventually convert, which is not easy. Okay, one last question, then I want to go forward, because what time did we start and what time did we supposed to end? Yeah.
When do you have to leave? We only started 15:15, which will definitely.
Okay, we have to, okay.
If you lost someone and you feel like their presence or that was what my mother would have said, or, oh, there's my father, he's winking at me. Like, something happens in your life, you go to the store and I don't know what happens, someone helps you. Or
Yes,
and you
yes.
feel like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of my mother or
Yes,
father.
yes.
Is that the Gilgal maybe?
No, the Gilgal would, it could be the soul of your mother or father winking at you or doing something. It's also possible that that your mother or father could come back as your child or your grandchild. And we see this, we see grandchildren who are mamash the mannerisms of the grandparent that they never met.
Wow.
You know, we're not talking like, you know, same eye color, hair color, features. We're talking about like the way they talk, the mannerisms, you know, Okay, so I want to give you some examples of, and I want to say one thing that's very, very important. Everything that you're learning in this class applies only to you. You should never apply it to anybody else. In other words, if you are suffering, if you get sick, you can say, this is really hard. I chose it. Somehow this is part of my tikkun. What am I supposed to learn from this? I chose this because this will somehow conduce to my tikkun. But you never say that about another human being who is suffering. You never look at somebody else who gets sick and say, well, they must have chosen it, it's part of their tikkun. We don't do that. Is this very clear? Very clear. Everything you're learning applies only to you. To other people who are suffering with any kind of financial, physical, emotional, you know, marital, anything crisis, the proper Jewish response is only compassion and empathy. Don't be Gloria. Okay? Okay, I want to make this very clear. Is this very clear and to everybody who's listening? Okay, this is for you, for when things happen to you, not to apply to other people. I got a nod I want a nod from everybody. God forbid you should use anything I just taught you to distance yourself from somebody else's suffering.
Can you just tell the people who put their hands up to ask a question?
Okay.
They will address it after.
Okay, people who have your hands up to ask a question, people who have written questions in the chat box, well, I'll answer at the end, okay? And I think I'll answer all the questions at the end, even for the ladies who are here, because I want to go forward. So I want to give you some examples from my book of how tikkun works. So there was a fellow named Brian Arthur Rich. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1977 to a Roman Catholic mother and a Presbyterian father. Brian didn't know a single Jew as he was growing up in Omaha, Nebraska. Do you people even know where Omaha, Nebraska is?
No, a rabbi.
Exactly, there were people that used to go and learn in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you. So I was born in America. I'm going to explain to you America. For the British and South African people who are listening. America is a very big country, more wide, like it's wide like this. There's the East Coast where Jews live. And that could be New York, New Jersey, Florida, Baltimore. East Coast. There's the West Coast where Jews live in places like LA, some in San Francisco or Seattle, Washington. And then there's the whole rest of the country where Jews don't live. No, except in two places. Except in Chicago. Chicago is a big Jewish community. Detroit has a good sized Jewish community. In Denver, Colorado, there's a small Jewish community. Okay, in Texas now, there's growing a bigger Jewish community in Dallas and Houston, a little bit in Austin, okay? But the rest of the country, when you hear that there's a Jew from a place like Mississippi, or a Jew from a place like Montana or Nebraska, you ask, how did you get there? Unless you're a Chabad emissary, okay? So this guy was born in Omaha, Nebraska. I say this, I mean, it's a joke between me and my husband. My husband was born in Chicago, and I was born near Philadelphia. So it's a big joke between us. You know, people like we Jews from the East Coast of the United States, that we think that how did any Jew ever get to any place that's not the East Coast of the United States? That the natural place for Jews is why the natural place for Jews should be in the East Coast of the United States and not in Omaha is, my husband's family actually came from South Dakota, because when they came from Romania, they went to South Dakota and opened a dry goods store. Okay. So going back to here, he was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and he didn't know a single Jew because there were none. They were in Omaha. He had neither knowledge of nor interest in anything Jewish. At the age of 21, he started studying metaphysics and mysticism. One day he walked into a Barnes and Nobles in Columbus, Ohio, and bought a book that delved into 6 different kinds of mysticism, including Kabbalah. In the midst of reading the chapter on Kabbalah, Brian had a dream that was to recur frequently for the next 2 years. In the dream, he saw himself as a religious Jew with a beard and side locks. Yes. He was a scribe. He was writing on parchment scrolls in a strange language that he later identified as Hebrew. Mysteriously, in the dream, he was drawing tiny crowns on certain letters. When he would wake up, he would think, that's crazy. Why would anybody put crowns on letters? Only years later would he discover that Jewish scribes, when copying sacred texts, do indeed put crowns on letters. Anybody has ever seen an actual Torah scroll? We put crowns on certain letters. Okay, but it's something that is, this person who had no Jewish connection at all in this lifetime was like, this is crazy, crowns on letters. In the second part of the recurring dream, he saw himself being ushered into a shower room with many other Jewish men. He knew that the showers were really gas chambers. As he was going into the room, he was trying to understand why this was happening to him. He had been a devout Jew who had fought to make sure that his children married Jews. Now he was angry at God for his bitter fate. Quote, right as they were about to turn on the showers, he recalls, I dropped to my knees and said with as much anger and hatred as I could muster, God, why couldn't you have made me a Gentile? This shouldn't surprise any of us. I mean, the Jews, tortured in the Holocaust. Nobody died in the gas chambers who didn't get tortured, either being in the camps or even on the trains there with no water, no place to use the bathroom, nothing. Everybody who died in the gas chambers had been tortured beforehand. So that somebody would drop to his knees and be angry at God and say, why couldn't you have made me a Gentile? Shouldn't surprise any of us. At the end of 2001, while the dream was still recurring, Brian went to a Jewish chat room. He started chatting with an Orthodox Jew who called himself B'nai Torah. Within 3 months, Brian abandoned Christianity. 2 years later, he started the conversion process through the Chicago Rabbinic Council, the closest Orthodox Rabbinic Council to Omaha. In 2010, Brian moved to Israel. In November 2011, he officially converted, taking the name Yitzhak. So he started in 2001, and it took him 10 years to actually, it's not easy to convert to Judaism. It's not easy. The rabbis are enjoined by the halacha to turn away a potential convert twice. It doesn't make it hard. You have to really go through the ropes to become a Jew. He died, he'd been a good Jew, a devout Jew, but he died saying, angry at God and saying, why couldn't you have made me a Gentile? What was his tikkun? Coming back as a Gentile and having to choose to be a Jew. He wanted his death. And again, there's no blame involved here. There's no blame. Oh, he should have what? He should have what? He's dying in the gas chambers after God knows what kind of torture. But he died wishing he was a Gentile, regretting that he was a Jew. And his tikkun was apparently to be born as a Gentile and have to really fight his way back to get to be a Jew. It took him 10 years. Now he lives in northern Israel, and he's learning to be a scribe. And of course he puts crowns on letters. you know, so.
You spoke to all these people. You met
Yes,
them.
I spoke, I didn't speak to all the people, some people we had email correspondence with. But him, I
Not
heard.
doubting the validity, I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
No, I spoke to him personally. Okay. Another story. This is somebody I know quite well personally. Nicolette Verhoeven was born in Amsterdam in I'm going to go beyond.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
yeah.
Is that okay with everybody?
If anybody needs to,
I might
go
have
and
to
leave.
find
Yeah, if anybody needs to leave, so then.
So maybe I'm going to, okay, so I'm going to skip Nicolette because I want to be able to, I want to sign the book you're buying.
My
so-
daughter's here, she can.
Oh, she can do it. Okay, so I don't have to worry. Okay, I'm going to skip to, anyway, to Glen Hill, the story of Glen Hill. Glenn J. Hill was born to a Methodist family in Sacramento, California in 1953. Although his family ostensibly had no Jewish connections, by fourth grade, Glenn was reading everything he could find about the Holocaust. He studied German in high school and did his class paper on German art under the Nazis. He was very artistically inclined. He makes musical instruments like harps and lutes and things like that in his lifetime. On September 21st, 1999, near sunset that day, at the age of 46, Glenn died for 5. Now, Glenn was growing up as a non-Jew, married a non-Jewish woman. On this day in 1999, Glenn died for 5 minutes from anaphylactic shock. He spent the next 19 hours on life support. Unknown to Glenn, this was the start of Yom Kippur, the day in the Jewish calendar when God decides who shall live and who shall die. Glenn experienced a classic near-death episode. Then 2 weeks later, and so this near-death episode was like really for all people who have near-death episodes, I think, and it really opened his spiritual eye, you know, as the person sees, you know, they're out of the body and they see the spiritual world. Then 2 weeks later, Glenn had a spontaneous PLR, past life regression. He says, this is from his email to me. In the past life, I have recalled my wife and I were together as a couple, with her not being Jewish and me being Jewish, but being assimilated, not traditionally Jewish. I was Italian, spiritually progressive, an avant-garde artist. We were very wealthy, living on the coast near Genoa. Very long-time family in the area. My name was Alberto Carnegie. I'm not sure of the last name spelling, but it sounds like this. Men in black shirts broke into our home, slashed my paintings, and destroyed my art studio. I was beaten, taken out, and shot with rifle fire to my chest, and then a pistol shot to the head, in front of my wife and our 2 little girls, who were screaming in terror. Our 2 little girls were taken away to a camp, because according to the Nazis, anybody with a Jewish father, even one Jewish grandparent, is considered Jewish. My wife was left alone, as she was not Jewish. She later killed herself in despair, jumping off the cliff into the sea. I recall that our house, a villa really, was on the edge of a cliff overlooking the sea outside of Genoa, Italy, to the east near Portofino. The first flash of memory was followed by more scenes and information over a period of time, including a scene of riding with my families in a beautiful, luxurious open car near the sea. So these were his flashbacks that started. It seems like his near-death experience, like, launched him into a more spiritual vision he was able to have. 2 years later, in 2001, Glenn entered a synagogue for the first time. His wife was taking a course in helping terminally ill people. Now he knows from this past life experience, in his past life he was a Jew, which means he has a Jewish soul. Even if he's born to a non-Jewish parents, non-Jewish mother, he could have a Jewish soul. I mean, he has a Jewish soul. Or what we might subsequently find out with him is that in fact he was matrilineal line traces back to a Jewish mother. This is often the case with people, but it's hard to trace those lines. Anyway, so Glenn entered a synagogue for the first time in 2001. His wife was taking a course in helping terminally ill people through the dying process, and the course involved studying different religions. They decided that it would be an educational experience to go to Rosh Hashanah services. This is what Glenn wrote to me.
Was his wife Jewish?
No, his wife was not Jewish. Because he was not Jewish, he married a non-Jew, so he was like, this was normal. All this is happening when he's in his 40s. Like this suddenly is like the whole doesn't, a door open to the spiritual realm, really, for him. This is what he wrote. When I came to the door of the synagogue, I was suddenly stopped halfway in and halfway out by a deep, visceral terror. A strong fear that my life would be in danger if I crossed through that doorway. Now, just think about this. I don't know how much each of you knows about Jewish history in Europe, but you can imagine that a person who's a Jewish soul who has been incarnate before as a Jew in Europe has very strong reason to associate identifying as a Jew with absolute terror. I was suddenly stopped halfway in and halfway out by a deep visceral terror, a strong fear that my life would be in danger if I crossed through that doorway. I think I was apparently deeply afraid at the time to be identified as a Jew. It's a memory from my past life experience. So, like, does this strike everybody as like normal? Like if you had been a Jew in Europe, in this case, died, killed in the Holocaust in Italy by Italian black shirts. But, you know, there were the Crusades, there were the pogroms, there are many reasons why a person associates being identified as a Jew with scary things. So there he was at the entrance to this synagogue, halfway in and halfway out, and he gets gripped by terror. But I did step through the door. Okay, now this, you ask the question, you forget everything. So how do you know what your tikkun is? But this, see the hints that our lives provide for us? Our lives provide these hints. So here he sees, he is afraid of being identified as a Jew. That's a very significant thing. A person has to really look at that. Why am I afraid of being identified as a Jew? Even it's not a question of why am I. There's historical reasons why I would be. But is this okay, or is this something I need to fix? It's just things happen in our lives that will cause us, if we are conscious people, if we understand that the point of life is tikkun, then we'll start saying, oh, I had a strong reaction to this. Is this okay? Is this something I need to fix? So he says, several years later, Glenn discovered that his matrilineal line traced back to Jewish ancestors who had fled, where there was, of course, the Inquisition, arriving in Virginia in the early 1700s. Started to identify as a Jew and to affiliate with the Jewish renewal movement, studying Judaism under Reb Zalman Schachter Shlomi. He did genealogy and found out this matrilineal line traced back to a Portuguese ancestor who arrived in Virginia in the 1700s. Now, without going into the whole history of the Inquisition but Portuguese, like Spanish Jews, had a very difficult time with the Inquisition. And many of them, half the Jewish community of Spain in 1492, converted to Catholicism, converted to Christianity.
Everyone can have a reincarnated soul in them, and it's just whether they are tuned in enough to have these dreams, maybe. Because that's what you're saying. We all can have. We can be a.
We are all reincarnated souls.
Yeah.
The Arizal said in the 16th century, there are no new souls going back into the world.
Right. So if I had a reincarnated soul of someone in the Holocaust, for example, it was probably so traumatic. If I'm tuned in, maybe I'll start having those dreams. But
Yes.
if I was reincarnated as my grandma, who just had a normal life, I may not have her dreams.
That's right. That's
it
right.
doesn't mean that.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. It's not good to have the dreams. The dreams are, there's supposed to be a wall between lives. But what happened with the Holocaust is that people came back too fast. It's supposed to be a long time between lives. And when people came back, most of the people that in my book came back like within 25 years of the Holocaust. It was too soon, so the veil is too thin and things seep through. It's better not to be, but if you have nothing to fix, if it was a boring life, then that's not what's gonna come back to what's gonna hit you are the things that you need to fix. And they don't have to hit you through dreams. They can hit you something like this. Guys walk into a synagogue and suddenly he's gripped by terror. I'm afraid. We identified as a Jew. What's going on? Okay. So he says, so here he is, he's studying Judaism. Now he feels that he maybe is Jewish. His mother's mother was Jewish. So he starts identifying as a Jew and studying Judaism called Jewish Renewal under Reb Zalman Schachter Shlomi. One Yom Kippur, he was in the synagogue when for the first time in his life, he was handed the Torah scroll to hold. He writes, when I took the Torah, I suddenly felt this overwhelming grief, which in a few minutes had me sobbing. I realized that this grief came from having chosen not to have ever held the Torah in a past life. I was aware that in at least one past lifetime, the Italian one, I had rejected the Jewish religion as, quote, out of date, unquote. The most important thing, I believe, is to learn the lesson that each of us did not learn in our last lifetime. It was for this purpose that we've come back. So here you have someone who was an assimilated Jew, and he was killed for being a Jew because there was the Holocaust. And now he's back. And he's married to a non-Jew, and he's in his 40s, and he's living this life of a non-Jew. But suddenly, and nothing happens by chance. Everything is from Hashem. He discovers his matrilineal line is Jewish. And he decides, and he had, in addition to the dreams, and now he knows his matrilineal line is Jewish, it means that he is Jewish. And he starts getting involved in Judaism through Jewish Renewal, and which is like a New Age form of Judaism. And here he's in synagogue on Yom Kippur, and he's handed a Sefer Torah, and he starts to cry. And he understands from within himself he's crying because he had chosen in past lives never to hold a Torah scroll. And the first time in all his lives he's holding a Torah scroll because he had chosen, he had thought Judaism is outdated religion, he wanted to be, which is something, I mean, even going back to the Maccabees, I mean, going back to the Hanukkah story, 2,300 years ago, there were Jews who thought Judaism was out of date. And they wanted to be assimilated into the major culture. So that's a choice Jews made. And then they come back and they may have seen in the world of souls, this was a bad choice. It was a bad choice to reject Judaism as being out of date. Judaism's not out of date. You know, the Greeks were very much in the modern and in style 2,300 years ago, in the Hanukkah story. All the wealthy and elite members of the Jewish community chose to assimilate, chose to be Hellenist. But then you see, person sees this was a bad choice. The Greeks were gone and this out-of-date Judaism is still here. Then maybe it's a bad choice. And maybe the tikkun lies in embracing real Judaism in this lifetime. See how it works? Person has a chance to do tikkun. So I want to end by saying, I mean, there's many stories of tikkun in the book. Tikkun's hard work. Person has to actively work at changing innate character traits like overcoming anger or fear or greediness or jealousy. And even if the circumstances of your life are conducive to making those changes in yourself, you still have to work at it. So I'm going to skip through because some of the things I wanted to say because I want to answer some of the questions. But yes, so I'm going to end by saying one word about marriage. So many of you are married. Your spouse, as we said, was determined before you were born. And you chose your spouse based on what would be most conducive to your tikkun. I give a weekly marriage webinar. It's on my, called the Jewish, it's called the Kesher Wife Club. Kesher means connection. It's on my website, sararigler.com. There's a whole thing, people can read about it. It's a weekly program for married women to work on themselves spiritually through their marriages. Because the underlying concept is, it's not a question of, well, how can I have more harmony with my husband? It's how can you work on yourself to change yourself through the challenges that your marriage presents. Because you don't need two to tango, and a woman by herself can have a great marriage. But it requires work, and tikkun requires work. And the good news is that that's what we're here for. We're here to do tikkun. So we don't have to feel like, oh my goodness, I've been afflicted with this really hard job. I'm a garbage collector in this lifetime. I'm cleaning sewers in this lifetime. No. I have a chance to fix myself. I have a chance to really be what we call in Ivrita, in Hebrew, a heroine. And that's why in the Kesher Wife Club, whatever we're working on, we have exercises, we have charts. And every time you do the exercise, you give yourself a check. And when you get enough checks, you give yourself a prize, a present for the body, a reward for the body. It's the Musser way of changing yourself. We only change ourselves really efficiently if we have a program going on like that. So I invite any of you who are married to join the Kesher Wife Club. Again, you can find it on my website. Yes, question.
I just say that it is a wonderful club. Part of it. Yeah.
Are you Masha? Oh, hi, Masha. Good to meet you. Masha's in the Kesher Wife Club. I was wondering if you were here.
It's a wonderful stuff. It's really life-changing. So practical, you really they changed my marriage. So many other Kesher wives, and I'm so excited to meet you now in person. Not only on Zoom.
Great. I'm so glad you came, Masha. Yes, it's like a support group. The women give each other. We have a Kesher Wife of the Week every week, because everybody's anonymous. Nobody knows anybody else personally. So you tell the story when my husband did this, and then I was faced with that, and I could react by yelling at him, but I didn't, and I stopped myself. So then we all give our accolades, yay, so and so. Okay, so it's definitely a group I think that has helped hundreds of women. Okay, so I encourage you to see your life as a process of tikkun and to rejoice in it, because it's good, it's great. There's nothing better than to do your tikkun in this lifetime. That's why you're here. And now I'm going to look at questions. First of all, are there any more questions from the audience that are here? Okay, then I'll look at the questions that came in.
We've got one question.
Okay, one question.
Then get a question. No.
No.
Oh, I thought you had a question. Can I just quickly say that I just messaged Torah Treasures. Your book sells out every time he orders them in. There will be more in tomorrow, and Heinz will also.
There will be
more in
tomorrow.
in
Because
Torah
they have
Treasures.
sold
I'm
the
just
first
waiting on
printing.
Heinz.
In America, the first printing has sold out. You can't get the book in America. I'm surprised that he can get it.
Okay, no problem.
I'm surprised that he can get it. In America, it's sold out.
Layman's has still got a few.
They're printing the second printing now. Okay, using the shiur as an example, isn't there free will choice to attend or not attend the shiur? Rather than it being a certainty, isn't it that there is an opportunity offered and our choice to make it? If someone sees that they're going to mess up the opportunity, then why would they agree to? So first of all, was it determined? Do you see everything? Wasn't it a choice to attend this year or not? The answer is yes and no. That you found out that there was going to be a shiur today, and many of your friends did not find out that there's this shiur today. That I was coming, and that I got in touch with Joanne, and Joanne decided to say yes, we'll have a shiur. Again, it's all there are a lot of things that are determined. In the end, could someone say, no, I'd rather go go to the gym. Why do I need to go hear some spiritual shir? Yes, a person always has free will. So the details are determined. But a person in the end does have free will in the moral area, and this is definitely a moral choice. If someone sees they're going to mess up the opportunity, then why would they agree to choose it? They don't see that they would mess it up. Free will means you have a choice to go either way. You have a choice to go either. You could go either way. That's the definition of free will. Oh, you're very, very welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you for coming. Let me see. Other questions? Oh, Karen Leva. Hi, shalom, Karen. You're here. Where are you? Let me see. I see you from South Africa. She's in the book. Where is it? I don't see. How do I see Joanne? How do I see Karen? She's on with us, or was on with us from South Africa. She's in the book. I've never met her. Okay, Karen, she says, my story is told in the book. And yes, it's a secret society being being thought of as weird and strange. Karen doesn't have a picture. Okay, Karen. My oldest and dearest friend who lives in Ramat Beit Shemesh read the book and was overwhelmed that I hadn't spoken about my reality to her. Her comment to me was, I had no idea that what you were going through and what the others in Sara Rigler's book go through. So Karen, can you write that to me in an email? Because I mentioned about this other pair of friends, old friends who had the same reaction. I would really like that in an email, please. So I think that's all the questions.
Sharon, did you want to ask a question? Sharon and Katie?
Oh, have raised hands.
Yes, Katie was before me. Katie, are you there? No. Rebbetzen, first of all, thank you. I think you've saved my life this morning. In your book on page 133, you talk about somebody called Regina, born to a Christian family in 1973.
Yes.
And you
It's
say,
not her real name.
No. You
Yes.
say that she contacted you 2 years after first contacting you, and said that now she speaks German out loud all night, and that her scenarios have become more brutal and detailed, and it's unbearable for her. How can she survive? And I want to know what happened to her. I feel as if I've been left on the cliff with this lady. What happened to her? Was she in touch with you again?
I haven't been in touch with her for maybe a year now. There were maybe a total of 3 people who contacted me, and I contacted them, who have flashbacks. And I know another one who's not in the book. That's actually one of the best stories, but she wouldn't let me use it in the book. And this is not good. There are people who live with flashbacks, and it affects their mental health, and they can't handle it, and it's not good. What can I say? I think they need to go to a mikubal. I think the only answer is to go to a Kabbalist who has this spiritual power to like somehow erase it, because people should not be living with constant flashbacks of the Holocaust.
Thank you. It really disturbed me to read about it. Thank you very much.
Yes, it disturbs me every time I talk to her. It disturbs. There's really nothing I can do for her.
Thank you.
Yes, S Dome. You're raising your hand. Yes.
Hi, I want to ask you if the tikkun that you're talking about is what other people call yield, looking for life, kind of a purpose in life.
Well, I haven't heard the term Yair, but I have heard the term
Rabbi-
Yiyud.
Yeah,
Rabbi
Rabbi Niven talks
Niven told you, yes. Well, so Rabbi Niven says there are two things. There's tikkun and there's yiyud. A tikkun is fixing a negative thing, and a yiyud is a positive life's mission. So they're different. For example, I'll tell you what, I did Rabbi Niven's course years ago. And I wrote out my Elul plan. My mission in life, my yiyud, is to inspire people to move forward in their personal and spiritual development and relationship with Hashem. It's a positive thing. My tikkun is to stop reacting to frustration with anger, rejection, and blame. I have a volatile temper. And instead to respond to frustration with knowing that it's coming from Hashem, seeing that it's coming from Hashem and that it's for my good. So you see, this is really two very separate things. A tikkun is something negative that has to be fixed. Gloria has to fix her miserliness. Her yiyud could be something. Yiyud means goal.
Yeah, could be something completely different.
Yes, something else. Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that.
Are there any? Let's see. Sharon Brand, do you have a question?
I asked you, that was about Regina.
Mhm.
That was the question about
Asked you
Regina.
about Regina.
Oh, you asked about Regina. Yes.
Okay.
Very, very disturbing. Very disturbing. These people. They're mamash. Their lives are really hell.
Can I ask you something, please? I didn't hear the beginning part of the share, so apologize if you've mentioned it. You said she should go to a Mekobelet or a Mekobel. Is that not a dangerous path to go down? And how does one know if a Mekobelet is authentic? And isn't that very risky as far as somebody's bechira, as far as somebody's whole avodah in life?
So yes, you must be cautious when you go to a mikubal. I didn't say psychic. I would only go to somebody who is a practicing Jew.
Yeah, what does that mean? Because there's lots of those.
A practicing Jew who keeps the Torah.
Yes,
because there are a
I'm
lot of
saying
psychics
what we
out
never
there.
know on somebody's level of what's our belief system today on Mekobalim.
So yeah, I mean, there are mikubalim. I mean, I live in Israel. There are mikubalim who have reputations as being, as being authentic. There are people who have psychic powers, but you don't know where they're getting their where they're getting their power from. It could be from the other side, from the Sitra Achra. That's why it has to be somebody who's an authentic Jew who's following the Torah.
Yeah. Who would that be, for example?
Okay, so yes, it would have to be somebody that you make sure is really authentic. Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to take this opportunity. I'll come and stand right behind her. To firstly, thank Alison so much for opening up her home. To thank my dear friend who has also helped to sponsored for this actual show, and that we should all have amazing positivity from this. And the Ezos Hashem, we should all join together in Yerushalayim together with Rebbetzen Rigler very, very, very soon. And looking forward to being together with everybody again. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you.